I'm Alex Lefrebvre from UShareSoft, and I'm going to talk to you today about a project that we've just released as an open source project called Hammr. And it's a tool that can help you to build consistent machine images for the cloud. So what's the actual industry problem we're trying to solve? So in terms of cloud software onboarding, so we're looking at the software side, not the actual infrastructure side. So on the software side, often what people do, the way they create their images or the content of their images is that these machine images are managed manually. So they are created manually. Usually people have some kind of level of orchestration and self-service at the level of the infrastructure. However, for the content of the machine images, for the content of the application, it's all very manual today. So also there is a limited number of tools to be able to have some self-service so that people can develop an ecosystem of developers, contributors, users around it. The third area where there seems to be limitations is because of this manual way of building templates containing the software, so the actual images, there's a lack of governance of that software, which leads to some risk in terms of managing the software that typically enterprises will use inside those machines. And well, the applications tend to be hard to port from one cloud to another, because today, of course, we're talking about OpenStack, but we're also talking about, in general, people going from one cloud to another. So what we're trying to ensure is to be able to model an application once, and so that it can run on several clouds. The fact that it's done manually is not very good for that. So the whole idea is that if you want to onboard the software to the cloud, you need to add more automation, you need to have more self-service tools. So what do we need in general for hybrid cloud management? So in terms of networking, you need all the tools to be able to do VPN, SDN, software-defined network, etc. In terms of infrastructure, which we have, you need to have self-service provisioning, some kind of workflow processes, ability to manage your capacity and usage. You need to have IT process orchestration. And in terms of software onboarding, which we're focusing on, what you need is to have, maybe you need to have a marketplace where you can store and reuse the machine images with the software that you're going to develop. You need to have some tools to be able to create those machine images, which contains your software, the whole stack and the configuration. You need to be able to migrate from one cloud to another. You need to be able to apply the patches to your images, to your software stack. So you need to have some kind of versioning, software management for it. And you need to be able to audit what's happening, so who's using it, what's the different packages contained in this stack. So this area on the right is where the Hammr project comes in, and this is the goal of the Hammr project, to be able to help you with onboarding your software to the cloud. So what is Hammr? So first of all, it's a command line tool. So it's an open source project. It's now part of the OW2 consortium. It's a command line tool which is written in Python, so it fits nicely with the DevOps practices. So it can be used easily in other kind of programming environment. There's a couple websites where you can access Hammr. So Hammr.io is the website, and it links to the OW2 project as well. And the source code is available on GitHub. It's under the Apache 2 license. So I'll get now into more detail. So what do you need to do to install Hammr? So you need to have your to have all the dependencies for Python set up on your machine. Then you just pip install Hammr, and you can do Hammr -v, and it's a command line tool. So if I do Hammr -v, I'll see that I'm in version 0.23, and if I do Hammr, is it minus or minus help? I can have the list of commands. So it's typical of command line tools, which give you all the commands. So we'll go through this presentation through a number of those, not all of them. The full documentation's on the website. So typically, what you need to do to use Hammr is to have an account on a platform called UForge. So you can get a free UForge account at UShareSoft.com. So this is the platform, the backend platform that's going to be able to manage your image creation, image publication, etc., etc. So typically you need a credential file, so I'm not going to show you my real one so that you can hack my account, but this is typically what you have. So you just create your creation file with your user password and the URL that's given when you create the account. And once you've done that, you're ready. You can create and manage your stack. So let's go with it. So what do we mean by stack? So by modeling a software stack, the whole idea is that you'll be able to speed up, to ease the way you are going to deliver your IT software, okay? So the idea is to maintain the whole stack. We'll see in detail what it is, which includes the OS packages, the middleware, the software configuration. And then you can do a number of things. You can generate for any cloud formats, OpenStack and as well as other ones. You can publish them to your cloud platform, or you can download it if it's a downloadable image. There's other tools as well so that you can share it with other people having an account on UForge. So the typical use cases for that would be different people in a team that work on the same templates. Some of them would be, for example, specialists in anything to do with network management or security management, other ones in middleware. So you can incrementally build the software stack by sharing it with your colleague who takes over and just adds its own part with it. So that's the whole picture for managing a stack. We'll see later on about migration. So it all works with JSON configuration files. So there's a couple keywords, the stack, which describes the stack. And in order to be able to build the image, there's the builder keyword. And then you can publish the image with your cloud credentials. So we'll see what that is. So this is an example of a stack for Nginx. I don't know whether it's big enough, or I can show you the same one over here. Maybe that's larger, I don't know. So basically it's got a stack, I just give it a name, so it's gonna be called Nginx. I give it a version, I choose my OS, so I say it's Ubuntu 12.04, 64 bits. I choose what's called an OS profile. So an OS profile is the default OS packages that we will include in the stack. So we tend to encourage people to use minimal, so UShareSoft has defined a minimum number of OS packages so that the image will be able to run. Then we'll pull the dependencies if needed. And we add packages. So because we're doing an Nginx template here, we add Nginx as a package. We give a disk size, and I'll come to the builder part later on. So that's basically it. So basically you just describe the template within this JSON file, giving a minimum number of information. So there's much more you can do with Hammr. There's many other options that are all described in the documentation on the website. I can show you later on, time depending, another example of a more complete stack. So typically, as we've seen before, there's the OS profile, which contains a default like minimal that we had before, where you can add operating system packages. The UForge will automatically pull the dependencies. If you add a package that depends on other ones, you don't need to put dependencies, we'll pull them on. So that's basically the basement of your stack. Then you can add two things to it. You can add what we call projects. So projects are reusable middleware that are typically provided to you by the UForge administrator. So there are things like MySQL, Java SDK, Eclipse, etc., etc. So if you don't find them there, if you don't find the one you need, you have your My Software, which is your own private catalog of middleware. So you can create My Software objects, which we call bundles in Hammr. For example, if you want to install Alfresco, well, Alfresco is a tar.gz file, so you just put it in there. If you want to install other things that come as RPM packages that are packaged somewhere that you find on the internet, you add that in a bundle. So basically, all your middleware that you want to have in your template, you add as we call My Software or a bundle. And in general, when you create an application, you need to have some configuration. So in the configuration place, what you put there is typically shell scripts that will run the configuration of your application. So that could be creating the, if you put a database, creating the default database user. That could be configuring some configuration files. So anything that typical people that do manage applications do with shell scripts, you just put there as shell scripts, just like you would do normally. So you just store them as one element of your stack. And finally, there's what we call the install profile, which is lower down in the stack, which contains a number of elements that you can configure, such as security parameter, do you allow root to SSH login or not, some kernel parameter which you may want to add. You can choose to have basic partitioning or to have advanced partitioning with volumes and groups and stuff like that. You can choose to have the default DHCP or to be able to leave it open so that when the machine starts, you enter your own IP. So this is usually useful for corporate usage when the IP of the machine is imposed by some network department. You can choose the keyboard, the time zone, and you can choose or not whether to automatically accept licenses that are included in it. So that's the whole stack. On the website, you'll find all the documentation to be able to set all these elements in the stack. So let's go back to our Nginx template. So one things you can do is to validate the thing. So I'm going to validate my file, my Nginx template file. So what it says is the syntax is correct. So that's a step that you may want to do to make sure that you haven't done any mistakes in your syntax. And we're going to create that template. So let's just create it. So what it does is it connects to UForge and it's going to create a template object. So this is done with a command line. So UForge itself, once you have an account, you can also access the graphical user interface. So we're going to let it finish and have a look in a minute what the template looks like from the graphical point of view. But basically, you just run that in a command, and then it will create the template. So it gives the template an ID. So now, if I go back to my account on UForge here, I can go to my builder template. I'm going to, so I've got many templates. So I'm going to look here. So I've got an Nginx template which I've just created. In that stack, you'll see in the OS profile a number of packages, which is the minimal profile which I've specified, together with here the Nginx package which we've added, which appears here. That's all I've put in that template, so it doesn't have very much else. But if I had added configuration scripts or my software or any other install profile elements, I could find them here. All right, so once I've done this, what I can do is I can list all my templates. So there's another command, template list, and I'll find, so if I do Hammr template list, and I'm going to grep for Nginx because I've got too many. I'll find that I have, okay, I've got several that are called ng, but I've got a couple MongoDB and I've got the Nginx template which I've just created here. Well, okay. So now the next step is to be able to publish that template and to generate an image and publish it to OpenStack, because that's what we're here for. So what I do for that is I have a builder section in which I say that I'm going to generate an image of type OpenStack. I've got an account somewhere which describes my cloud account. I say that because we're an OpenStack, so I have to give the tenant, the image name, and a description. So in my original template here, so what I have is OpenStack. What I'm using is an OpenStack instance called OW2stack, which is provided by OW2 for the project, and I give it a tenant, an image name, and a description. So I have an account called OW2stack here. So if I do Hammr account list, You can see that with UForge you can have a number of cloud accounts supporting different clouds. So I have a number, I've got one for Amazon, I've got 3 for OpenStack, I've got one for Azure, Cloud.com, vSphere, etc., but so so you can have a number of accounts here. So here I'm using the one that's on OW2. So this is this account here. So at the moment, if I go to the images, I don't have an image with Nginx because I haven't generated it yet. So that's if you want to. So typically, an account looks like this. You give it a type, a name, and you give the endpoints for Keystone and for Glance, username and password. So that's how you specify your cloud account. Right. So I'm not going to create the account, but you've got a command to create the account from the account file, and then I'm going to be able to build that template. So let's just launch it now. So I'm going to ask to generate an image, an OpenStack ready image from that template. So that's going to take a while, so let's go back to the presentation. So what we do here is we take the template and we generate a machine image to the OpenStack format. The next step will be to publish it to my OpenStack account. So we do a number of steps in here. We check the dependencies, we pull some additional packages if necessary, and once we've done that, we actually create the image. I'll go later on once the image is created. You can publish it, and then you'll be able to see that the image is on the platform. Right. So the machine image formats that UForge supports is as listed here. Of course, we support ISO because that's where computer science started from. So that's how we started. We actually supported ISO. So just for the sake of it, UForge itself is managed as a UForge template, and when we generate UForge, the UForge software to install it at somebody's premises, what we do is we generate a UForge image. So depending on where we install it, we can generate an ISO if people want to mount the ISO on bare metal. We can generate a QCO2 image, we can generate an OpenStack image, so it depends on what the customer really uses. So we support a number of virtual formats, number of cloud formats. Part of our job is to keep up to date with those. So typically, most recent one that we've done is Google Compute. We're working on a Docker format as well. So that's the cloud industry move, so we have to keep up with it. Right. So let's just take a quick look at what our generation's doing. So it's still generating, so we'll come back to it later on. Right. So the next part I wanted to talk about is, yes, sure.
The build is local or remote?
So the build happens on the UForge server, so it's remote. Okay. Yeah, the build is remote. Actually, Hammr talks through the Hammr API to the UForge server. So in your Hammr credential, you indicate the endpoint of the UForge server, so you have to talk to a UForge server. So it's all remote. The computation's all remote. So what's the issue about migration? So typically migration, there's different scenarios for migration, but typically what you want to do is take some application that's running somewhere and put it somewhere else. Now there's two different types of migration. There's the black box migration. So often people who do disaster recovery would do black box migration. They would do a block migration of the whole system. However, what we're interested in here is to do white box migration. So what we do is we do a deep scan of the actual machine. So we look at all the native packages, all the files, we look at the configuration, and we report it as, first of all, a report. Then the UForge server is able to distinguish what's known, that is all the operating system packages, and what's different, which could be the configuration of those packages and any data. So in the second step, so it's a two-step process, the migration reports to the UForge server everything that's different from the native operating system packages. So that's the first scan. And then what you can do, once you have a scan, there's a number of things you can do. You can do incremental scans of the same machine over time. Like you could, with Hammr, as we'll see, you could use Hammr, for example, to be able to scan a machine every day. And then if you have a problem the next day, so today your web server works, tomorrow it doesn't, so you can easily and quickly compare two scans and see that, oh, somebody's changed the HTTP httpd-conf file, or somebody's changed some other configuration file. So that's one possibility, is to be able to compare two scans that are done incrementally, one after the other. Another one which you can do is to do white box migration. So once you've done migration, you can import a scan into a template, and then you have another template. So what you can do with this template is you can, with Hammr, you can export it, and then you can open the bundles and you can see what's in it. If you want to change the operating system, some of the operating system packages, if you want to add some of them, if you want to modify the configuration files, anything you can do in the application to modify it, to upgrade it, you can. So maybe when you've got your application on Amazon and you want to move it to OpenStack, you may also want to take the opportunity to do some upgrades, some modifications, so this is the right time to do it. You open the box, you do whatever changes are needed, and then what you can do is you migrate to the target environment, so you generate your OpenStack image, you publish it, and there you go. So let's just have a quick look of where we are. We're nearly there, generating now for the hypervisor. So with Hammr, what does it look like when you do a migration? You just use Hammr scan run. You give the IP of the machine which you're going to scan. You have to give a login, so the user has to have super user rights, and you give a name to your scan. Then basically it does all the steps that I've described before. So it first identifies the operating system, and then it does the first step where it scans the files and the packages, reports to UForge, and then it does a second step where it constructs what we call the overlay, which is everything but the OS packages, and send them to UForge. So after that, you can, as I said before, you can list your scans with the different scans that you have. You could build directly from a scan. So with that's like semi-black box migration. You've done a scan of your Amazon image and you just generate an OpenStack image exactly the same without modifying. As I said before, you could export the template first, look at it, modify it, and then generate. And then you publish the image that you've just generated. So in 4 commands here, you do the scan, you get the scan ID, you build the image for OpenStack, you publish it, that's it. You've got your Amazon system in your OpenStack machine. So typically, a scan will, of course, depend on a number of things. The duration of the scan will depend on a number of things. The first thing that could take time is the data. So as any migration, in general in the industry, it's usually a bad idea to migrate your 5 terabytes of data through the network. So typically what you do, and that's what people do in the industry, usually these large data are mounted on the file system. So what you do is you exclude, you've got the ability to exclude some directory, so you exclude that one. You get FedEx to send you the disk, and you remount the disk on the other side. So you find some other way of migrating large amounts of data. But if you have a reasonable machine with not too much data, so mostly the content, typical scan takes between 10 and 15 minutes to migrate to UForge. So that's a reasonable amount of time. So as I said, you can, to do the white box migration, you can import the template into UForge as a template, not just the scan, so that recreates the whole object with the whole stack, and then you can ask Hammr to download it for you. So let's go back to our demo. So I've now built this image. So what I want to do is I want to publish it. So the image ID is 14243, right? So what this is going to do is this is going to take the image, the OpenStack image which I've just created, and is going to send it to OW2stack. So I can go and see now on my UI what's happening. So if I go to my dashboard here, in the UShareSoft dashboard, you'll be able to see the generations. So you can see that this engines image here on the left was created a few minutes ago, and now it's uploading it to Glance. So if you look at my OW2stack here, and I just refresh these images, I can see that it's saving my Alexandre test, which is soon going to be available for launching on Horizon. So that's typical things you can do. Few words maybe. Well, I think that's about it. So there's many more options, many more things you can look on the Hammr.io website with all the full documentation. It's an open source project. It's OpenStack friendly. It's, as we've seen, it's other cloud friendly, but it's OpenStack friendly. That's why we're here. You can use it. You can contribute to it if you want to enhance it. It's there. All the URLs are there. So this, I think the slides are going to be on the website anyway, so you can get them. And so just as I said before, we had I had another example of a template which I've exported. So that's a more complex template here, which I've exported, which is lamp stack. So if I look at the template, the JSON file, I see, okay, that it's got more options that I didn't talk about. You can add some description, so it has a description of this lamp stack here. It's got this installation parameters where I've preset. So this is the one that we did for CloudWhat, I believe. So we've set up the keyboard to FR, the time zone to London for some obscure reason. There's a number of kernel parameters, including the console equals TTY0, which sends it to the OpenStack, which sends the output of the console to the OpenStack console. We've preset the root password because the Horizon console on CloudWhat we were told not to use the one that's was not working properly at the time. Nothing in terms of users and groups, and then the OS. So we just give it a number of, which says it's a Debian 6, 64-bit to a certain date. So which means that we are going to take the packages that are available on that date. So we freeze the date, and then we list all the packages that are in it. So there's a number of packages here, which we just skip for the sake of it. And then there's an interesting section called the bundles. So the bundles is what contains these my software. So your software that you want to put in your stack. So this is an example of it. So here I've got my software called webmin-deb. So what it does is it contains a file called the Debian package for webmin. And I'm just asking it, well, it tells me where it is, okay? And I'm just asking it to install it at the first time when the machine boots. So you could have a choice when you have a Debian or an RPM package to install it the first time you launch, to install it at generation time, sorry, or to leave it to your configuration script to install it at the right time. So you have the choice there, depending on the behavior of those packages, whether you want to have it auto-installed or whether you want to install it automatically. So it's got a license here. We've got the same for shell in the box, PHP myadmin, and yeah, basically that's it. And there in the config, you can see here that I have two scripts. I've got one which generates an access key and another one which does a reboot. And it's got a deployment scenario. So that's another tool where UForge provides another tool called the UForge Studio, which allows you to do a deployment, to call another package to help for the deployment and to enter last mile configuration values, such as the MySQL root password and stuff like that. So that's another item here. So that gives you an idea of a more complete stack. And then if you have a look here, so I've got a logo, I've got several directories. So that's the extract of the archive. So I've got a logo, and if I look at the bundles here, so I'll find my three bundles: PHP, myadmin, shell in the box, and webmin. And if I look at all of them, I can see that they've got, what do they have? Sorry, I forgot another stuff. And that's where you find the actual packages that are in there. So when you export a template, it exports all those packages as well. An interesting feature is that when you do a scan of a system, if the packages are not native to the operating system but are properly installed either as Debian or RPM packages, we will rebuild those packages and they will appear as .deb or .rpm when you export them. So we were not just dump the file system. If we recognize that there are proper packages that were properly installed, we will rebuild them, which could be interesting for you for reuse. And I think I'm done.